Hey, another week, another episode, Stomp Strong Show, and my God, have I been stomping strong. Episode 14, my man Saad's here. How you doing?
Life is great.
Dude, we've had a crazy week, man.
Sure.
I think I got, I told you almost like 36 miles yesterday I got, and today I put on another 8, so that's like 44 miles this week, and I rode like 5 out of 7 days.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to get back-to-back days on the bike.
Right. Very cool.
Did like a 13-mile one once. Today's 8 was with Kalish, and she's crazy, man. She can ride this bike anywhere, and it's like a 24 speed. It's called a gravel bike. It would have think about what we would have had as kids.
Yeah.
When the fast ones, we go, oh, that's a fast bike, right?
Yeah.
So, but she can ride that thing over like all the bumps I go over and stuff, and it's crazy, really, because I got the fat tire, and even I can't get over some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So we trucked through there's a creek by my house called Cibolo Creek. You hear about it all the time because I'm kind of getting addicted to it.
Yeah.
And it's like a mile away. And we trucked through the creek, went into Universal. I was looking for this old abandoned road I found on Google Earth. And the abandoned road, I could only find one time in the car because you got to duck back, and there's so many back neighborhoods tucked in on this creek from the Universal side. So if we were gonna go, if I could get it from my side and then find it on the bike, we could actually go down the road. So I'm like, listen, if we get to the creek, go to the golf course, go around the course, go up the road, I think it's right here on the right, about like within 2 miles.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, so we go. I found the road finally, right when I'm about to die. This whole thing is uphill, man. I'm like 4 miles uphill the whole way. I'm dying. Finally find the road. It's a brand new paved road for a neighborhood they're about to put in that used to be this old dude's private area, like a whole area, like blocks and blocks and blocks. It's not even blocks, it's land by the river, surrounding the golf course. This old dude had a house out there with all kinds of trails.
Right.
They're starting to bring in a road now to go take over all that dude's stuff after he died, whenever he died 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the house is all destroyed. I can see all this from Google Earth. And we got down the road. The road is at least quarter mile downhill. And the speed factor on this thing, I'm grabbing the brakes the whole way, going, holy shit, this is paved. So you're going like 20 easy, 25. And if you got off the brakes, you'd be going 40, 45. Now, like, quarter mile into the ride down the hill, I'm wondering if my brakes are going to fly right off my bike. I've been on the brakes now for 3 minutes.
Really? Yeah, that ain't good.
No, dude.
Yeah, that's not the way you're supposed to ride.
No, dude. I'm feathering them. I'm like,
Yeah.
every time you come off them, nuclear speed, right? I'm like, oh, shit.
Right.
Flying down this road, right? Get to the end of the road. It's at least a quarter mile downhill.
Yeah.
The longest downhill ever. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Get to the end of it.
Right.
Sit on a rock. Hang out, chilling for a minute. Get some water. We just put in the 4 hardest miles ever, and then the longest downhill of your life. Straight though. You could see the whole end of it, so you weren't worried about it turning or nothing. We're sitting there hanging out. Some dude walks out of the woods. No shirt on, water bottle. I'm looking around going, well, fuck, man, you're in the middle of the creek too. Like, there's no trails out in this way, but this road's here. And I go, hey, man, how you doing? Turns out it's a teacher, right? We start talking. He's like, yeah, my wife's pissed at me for coming out here in the middle of the heat, right? But he's like, yeah, he told me about the old man's house that's dilapidated in the woods. So we're going to take that road next time and cut back. It was just the craziest ride, because when you get done with that road, you got to come back through the creek. So we went over an area called the Flats, which I had to almost push it through. I made some Facebook Live videos, but man, I pushed it hard today on the bike. Nice. So like 6 miles in the creek, maybe 2 miles off the creek, and then maybe 4 miles off the creek and 3 miles on it, whatever. It's like 8 miles, whatever, but a lot on the creek, a lot off the creek. And I'm just tired, man. Real tired today. But I feel great, man. And then you came in and told me what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saad's 52, by the way. I'm giving you a little bit of an age. I know he looks young.
Nice.
And next to me, because I look old with the gray beard, even though I'm younger than Saad a little bit, by a few years, like 5.
I think 5 years.
But Saad still looks younger than me. But Saad didn't drink like alcohol, like an insane monster for 30 years every night. And he's taking care of his body like regularly.
Yeah.
Regular fitness is an interesting concept, right? You don't have to walk around with insane muscles or anything.
Yeah.
but body wise, you can do anything you want, and that's like my goal sort of is to be like sort of like you.
Thanks,
like able to do things like whatever you put your mind to.
Right.
Like you can roll around on the ground. All that stuff hurts me, man. I'm not
Sure.
used to that, right? It's a real different dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's time thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a.
So I got 3 of my students who are getting ready for tournaments or super fights next month, and so I do my regular classes, you know, like Monday through Saturday, but Sunday I dedicate to just them, you know. So it's not the recreational guy that's trying to figure out how do I shrimp or do an arm bar. No, this is for the guy that like he knows jiu-jitsu, he wants to like spar like 100%. We're gonna go and we're gonna focus on, you know, advanced concepts and just get better. And like for me, like you said, I'm 52, and you know the 3 guys I'm in there with, like 2 of them are in their 20s, and then 1 of them I think is in his 30s. You know, they're young, in their prime, and you know, they're bringing it to me,
and they're hungry. It's next week. What?
No, well, it's next month.
It's next month. What's that tournament mean? I've never heard of that tournament.
So, one is going to be in the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation Austin Open, which all the jiu-jitsu tournaments run by the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation are the most prestigious. You know, there's other tournaments out there. You know, they're fine tournaments, but the most, and it's almost like MMA. The most prestigious is the UFC. You know, there's other organizations, Bellator, and you know, that run, you know, MMA tournaments too. But the most prestigious is the UFC. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the most prestigious is the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. So, Dayton is doing that, but Joaquin and Chapa, they are doing this super fight on, I think it's Texas Mission Hunter Pro or something like that. But where they go up on this white stage, and it's just them and their opponent, and everybody's sitting in the crowd watching, and it's the only match going on. And they already know who their opponent is, and they've been training, you know, to get ready for this individual. And it's somebody that's also very talented with a great jiu-jitsu instructor that's training really hard. And that's the whole concept of the super fight. You're getting 2 of the best out there. Joaquin's doing it against another brown belt, and Chapa's doing it against another black belt. And they're gonna go at it, and you know, it's gonna be great. And you know, like Dayton had just done that on a fight to win tournament maybe 2 weeks ago. And
I was just gonna bring that up because as a person that's been to maybe 15 classes now, so I'm just like beginning, getting wet, right? And I had a few injuries, but even as your friend, we've had to unplanned weekends and not do certain things because tournaments seem to be pretty important and semi-regular.
Right.
It seems like you're going to make sure somebody's doing pretty good in the tournament.
Yeah, because
you don't talk, but you don't talk about it at the school. It's a weird thing. Yeah. You don't bring it up like we're going to do this and this, and we're doing this and this, and then you start thinking about it and you start hearing about it, and the kids are like, well, we're doing this tournament, that tournament. It's like a totally separate thing.
Yeah,
it's like you learn here and then you decide if you want to do it on this side.
Right. Because everybody has their own reasons for coming to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, you know, like some of my students are there because they like to compete. And so, you know, I go and support them at these tournaments. Some are just there because, you know, they want the social aspect. They want to make friends. And I support them in that. It's like, hey, you know, we got social activities going on. This is cool. Some are there because they just want to learn self-defense, you know, because they're worried about somebody jumping or something. And, you know, so those are people that usually won't even ever compete, you know. And then some are there because, like, they're victims of domestic violence or sexual assault or some type of crime, and they really want to, you know, work on self-defense. And then some of they just want to get in better shape. They're like, you know, I'd like to lose a few pounds, and I feel like I can lose a few pounds if I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so, you know, everybody's in a different, you know, has different goals, and you just try to support each one in their goals. So when my students sign up for a tournament, I try to, you know, be there to coach them.
Are you helping them to sign up for which tournament? Are you advising them?
Sometimes when I know they're interested in competing, I'm like, hey, this is a really good tournament. You know, like anytime they're interested in competing, IBJJF, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, best tournaments out there. And I'm like, this is a really good tournament. There's other jiu-jitsu tournaments that aren't as well run and I don't think are as safe. And so I would generally discourage them from participating in those tournaments if I feel like it's a poorly run tournament that's not run safely as far as the techniques allowed. And so, try to fit everybody in to where they're comfortable. And then I train with them and just, try to get them as well prepared as they can be, for that tournament. And it's a chess match. You go in, your opponent knows jiu-jitsu on a relative same type of skill level as you do. And, maybe they can, move the chess pieces a little bit different and deceive you. And next thing you know, it's checkmate. It's like, oh. And you might have been the better chess player. But on that day, they somehow, they had a strategy and it worked.
Sure.
Maybe if you played chess with this person 100 times, you'd beat them 99. But that one time, it worked out.
And sometimes, like, as a chess player who's surprised other people playing chess,
right.
like I've played, like, ranked people and done pretty well and beat them and stuff.
Sure.
And they look at me and they go, well, you don't play real chess. And I go, what's that mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I go, what's real chess? Well, you don't read the books.
Oh.
And I go, what's that mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what that means either.
Yeah, sure.
How is this? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, Dayton yesterday, we're at the fight at your house.
Uh-huh.
It's 1:00.
Right.
You start referring to this new guy coming into the class who's a doctor or something, some medical guy that
right.
I don't know who he is. We're not gonna say his name or
sure.
nothing. And then all of a sudden, 3 of the top dogs in the class are like, "Oh, he's tough.
Yeah.
Hey, he's a wrestler."
Yes.
And then Saad's like, "Dude, he's a good wrestler."
Yeah. Because he wrestled in college. So, the thing is a collegiate. Like a lot of times when people think of martial arts, they think of martial arts that were developed. I want to say like Asian style martial arts as martial arts, but wrestling is a legit martial art.
Sure.
And it freaking works. Like boxing is a legit martial art and it freaking works.
Sure.
And like in the UFC fights yesterday, like the guy that was fighting for the heavyweight title, he was an Olympic wrestler. Like he wasn't just sort of a good wrestler.
Yeah, Cormier's insane.
Yeah,
he's
an
insane.
Amazing wrestler.
Yeah.
And so that's a martial art in itself.
Let's just keep going on this.
Sure.
Why not talk about that? Just transition over to Cormier for a second.
Yeah.
That was a crazy fight. Why didn't he take him down?
That I don't understand.
5 rounds. For 3 rounds, me and Saad are looking at each other going, if you're good at something, don't you think you would want to do it?
Yeah.
Like if I was really good at downhill mountain biking, don't you think I would just kind of do that? Like, I don't think I would go try to become like a road biker or something. You know what I mean? This dude doesn't take him down for 5 rounds.
Never tries.
Not even once.
And that just really amazed me. And I think what happens in MMA is, like, you'll get, like, Cormier, one of the best ground fighters in all the UFC ever. And, but he's got really heavy hands, so he's knocked a lot of people out. And sometimes what'll happen is a guy will fall in love with that knockout. Like, be like, you know what? I know I'm better on the ground, but I think I can knock him out. And you just keep trying and keep trying. And that's what Cormier ended up doing for 5 rounds. He just kept trying to knock Miocic out. And I think part of that was because the first time they fought, he had knocked Miocic out. So the first fight, Cormier knocked Miocic out. Second fight, Miocic stopped Cormier on a technical knockout. Third fight went 5 rounds, unanimous decision. But I think his strategy of not taking him to the ground,
Horrible.
Yeah, just backfired on him.
Yeah, it was a weird fight. It almost looked, and honestly, I'm not trying to say nothing like from one big dude to another big dude. It looked like he was tired. It looked like he might not have the energy to take him down, and he had to be careful about not getting hit.
Right.
And at the same time, if you are tired and you are worried about getting hit, then you have to start throwing a jab. If you're going to be tired, you have to throw a jab, do something to keep the fight, give him something to keep busy. And when I was screaming, start punching then. If you're not going to do this or that, at least you got to punch.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch for a minute.
It was a lot of tough stuff that went in there, and I think part of it is, I think the UFC needs to look at like some rules changes, because my wife was telling me before I came over today that, you know, the news just reported that Cormier has lost vision permanently in the eye that he got gouged in, because it was in the third round. Towards the end of the third round, Miocic gouged him in the eye.
Oh my God.
You know, and you could see like his eye was seriously damaged. Cormier finished the fight, so he went out in the fourth round and the fifth round, not being able to see him out of, I think, his left eye. I could be
Yeah, it
right.
was his left.
And but that was all the more reason Cormier should have took Miocic down, because I'll roll with my students and I'll close my eyes sometimes.
I watch you do
Because
that.
I don't need to look at them, because, you know, I can feel where they are. Like, I know where they're at. So him having two eyes is critical standing up when punches and kicks are coming. But on the ground, he could be one eye, and I've seen judo players, I've seen Brazilian jiu-jitsu players and wrestlers who are blind and are very successful. Like, because
feel.
Yeah, just from the field. But a blind person will never be successful in boxing or kickboxing or Muay Thai. Like, no, you can't. You're not seeing the punches and kicks coming.
Right.
You know, so you can't defend against them. So, and, you know, although Miocic's eye jab on Cormier ended up with Cormier now what was reported has lost vision permanently in that eye. But, you know, I don't want to say anything bad about Miocic, because in the first round, Cormier jabbed him in the eye.
Yeah.
You know, but the jab wasn't as bad. So what I think the UFC needs to do is, if there is no reason to fully extend your hand with your fingers open. Like, there's just, you're either going to punch him or you're not punching him. And they're allowing the fighters, you know, to maybe they're judging distance, you know, whatever they're doing, whatever's going on in their mind, where they're like, oh, you know, I'm sticking my fingers out.
Yeah, John Jones effect.
And
a lot of fighters do this on purpose.
Yeah,
Let's just say it. Like, some people
in
do
some
it
cases.
all the time.
But Cormier will be the third fighter I know in the UFC who has now lost his vision in an eye. The others being Alan Belcher and Michael Bisping over this type of thing. And the thing is the UFC, if you kick somebody while they're on the ground, you just lost your fight. If they can't continue, you know, because you can't kick them on the ground. If the one loss John Jones has on his professional MMA record was not where somebody beat him, he was mounted on a guy named Matt Hamill. And in the UFC, you can throw your elbows here, but what you cannot do is throw your elbows straight north-south. Why? I don't know, but that's their rule. And so Jones was throwing his elbows into Matt Hamill's head and face, going straight north-south, and the referee disqualified it. It's like, ah! So that's his one loss in his entire MMA career. Not where a guy actually beat him. He just got disqualified.
Right.
So if you can disqualify somebody for this north-south elbow, disqualify somebody because they kicked you on the ground, you definitely should disqualify somebody for gouging you in the eye.
So you think you make it a massive, you don't have to change anything except
Right.
if you gouge someone's eye out, the fight's over.
Right, exactly.
Like, if you poke my eye out and I can't continue, and the doctor says I'm good for stopping,
And you just lost.
you just lost.
And
It totally
I
makes
think
sense.
That'll make people stop, because like Joe Rogan talks about, you know,
The
like
gloves.
wrapping the fingers in some kind of gloves, but the problem with that is now you're going to hinder the grapplers even more, because, you know, their hands, because the gloves in the first place favor the strikers, because it allows the strikers to punch you without, well, at least minimizing the risk of breaking their hands. So if you watch the early UFC, very few people would hit you with their fist just because they didn't want to take the chance of their fist breaking. So you'd see guys like Boss Rutan, and they'd just throw punches with their palm.
And actually, he learned that because Pancrase had no fist.
Right.
He couldn't make a fist from Pancrase. So he did this crazy hand thing.
Right, and it was very effective.
Insane.
Sure, and you can knock somebody out with it.
Insane.
Yeah.
So good, and he never hurt his hand.
Right.
And he stayed healthy. So it turned, and then when he went to regular MMA fights, he did the same thing.
Right.
He chose it.
So when they put the gloves on him, it is an advantage for the striker, you know, because now, you know, you can hold the person's glove, you know, when they're grappling you. The striker can hit you with protection to breaking their hand. Because, you know, if you break your hand in the first round, well, you're going to lose that fight. Like, just,
most likely, yeah.
Yeah, like it's
unless you choke somebody out and
Right.
get a good,
you know.
you got good jiu-jitsu, you know, you can do something.
So they have to be very cautious with that, you know, with the gloves. And if you wrap the fingers up, it's going to affect the grapplers worse, and it will favor the strikers, you know, the stand-up strikers, because it's going to be harder to grapple if you tie my fingers together.
Sure.
And you can still get gouged in the eye.
Let me ask you this. So we started with the tournaments, and you've done tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how long has you either been in tournaments or been coaching somebody in tournaments, you think, years-wise? How long have you been around tournaments?
Probably 15, 16 years.
15, 16 years. Okay, so you've seen a lot of people in tournaments, and you've coached now several people. I know there's really good guys in the gym right now, a handful that are just excellent and are doing these, and we go watch them and stuff like that. So when do you look at somebody who says, hey, I'm going to start doing these tournaments, I'm really good at these tournaments, and do you ever go, hey, you maybe should try UFC, MMA, you're so good at this.
Right.
Have you ever seen it where you saw someone and said, dude, you should do this? Like,
Well,
your skill set is good enough,
Right.
and you know this.
The thing is like, I would never recommend MMA for a friend or family member, just because there's just not enough money in it, and the damage that you're taking, I just don't think is worth it.
I thought that would be your answer.
And like, that's why I don't run an MMA program at my school, because one of the hardest things I used to teach at an MMA school in North Carolina, and you know, my students would ask me to be in their corner, and I hated it, because, and like last night watching the UFC, you know, that's entertaining because I don't know those guys. But when you're my friend and you're up in the cage, or you're my student, like, it bothers me to see you take damage, you know, like to get punched in the head. And then I have to ask myself, man, did I prepare this guy enough? And so I remember, you know, the gym owner where I was teaching people, you know, he was also involved in the promotion of a local MMA event. And a lot of my students would enter, and he would get upset with me because I'd be like, dude, don't fight. You're not ready, you know, to take this fight. Don't do it. And he's like, hey, it's the ref's job to protect them. No, it's my job as their teacher to protect them. And I'm going to tell him straight up, dude, you're not ready. Don't get in there.
That's so important, man.
And so at my school, because I only offer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, you know, so some students don't stay with me because I get students that want to be MMA fighters. And what I do is I'm just honest with them. I'm like, hey, I'm not running an MMA program here. If you want to be an MMA fighter here in the city of San Antonio, the best programs for MMA, and there may be more than the ones I'm going to name, but the best are Ohana, Brazilian Top Team, and Rodrigo Pinheiro. Now, I know there's going to be somebody out there that see this video and be like, oh, we got a good MMA program at our school too. I'm sure you do. I'm just saying, in my professional opinion, the best 3 programs in the local area are Ohana, Brazilian Top Team, and Rodrigo Pinheiro. So if a person comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to be an MMA fighter. I feel like I can be in the UFC one day. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not the school for you.
Interesting.
And I will send them to Ohana, Rodrigo Pinheiro, or BTT, wherever they live closest. And I'll be like, those are the 3 schools I would recommend, because all 3 of those schools have put people into the UFC. All 3 of those schools have outstanding instructors, and they have MMA programs that, you know, they got great striking programs, great grappling programs. They got cages in their school. Like, they are tailored for that type of training. Where for me, I'm going to teach you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the gi on, you know, and they don't allow you to wear the gi in the cage anymore in the UFC. So it's like, I'm just honest with them. Like, I'm not the school for you if you want to be an MMA fighter.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm honest with them. Like, if you come to me and you're in your 30s and you've never done martial arts and you want to make the UFC, I'm also going to be honest with you that it's not going to happen for you. You know, like, you can't start martial arts in the 30s and think, you know, you're going to become enough of an expert at ground fighting and stand-up fighting that you're going to make the UFC. The honest truth is, you just missed that opportunity. and you know, like you should go into something else. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people out there. You could walk in there today, Stomp, at 47, and they'll be like, "Hey, I think we can get you to the UFC."
Right.
And they're selling you a bag of,
right.
they're selling you a terrible bag of false goods. Like, no, you can't. You know, you're definitely not in your 40s. Maybe your early 30s, but.
And it depends on your physicality. I mean, you come out of some program that you're some insane, like you've been a SEAL for 12 years, and you got some background. Maybe you got the physicality. I don't know. Maybe you come in and learn.
I've trained with SEALs. There's no SEAL prepared to go into the UFC. The SEALs do not train them enough in striking and ground fighting that they're going to go from being a Navy SEAL to a UFC fighter.
There's no middle.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if they, on their off time, was, you know, spending time training, you know, Muay Thai or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then they get out of the Navy, you know, whether it's SEAL, Green Beret, or whatever, but, you know, they trained on their own time.
Sure.
You know, yes, for sure, they could, you know, like Tim Kennedy was, I believe, a Green Beret.
Yeah.
Or Army Ranger.
Yeah.
I know he was with the Army, either the Ranger or Green Beret. Please forgive me, I don't remember exactly.
Super sick.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. You know, he trained, it wasn't just the training that the Army gave him. He had his own training. And so when he fought in the UFC, he had an amazing success, super tough dude. But that's not the norm, you know.
Right.
Even for our special forces, they're not trained well enough to get up there and fight in the cage at the UFC level.
So for you, tournaments were important, and you make it important as far as making sure that your guys know that you'll be there for them, and you plan it, and.
But only important because it's important to my students.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting because, like, I would have never. I was so scared to walk in your door, dude, and I don't know why.
Right.
But for years, I was so nervous to go into to really start. And then you start, and I would have never thought I'd want to do a tournament.
Right.
Ever. And then you're around the guys, and they're talking about it a little bit. I haven't even gone to see one.
Right.
But you've invited me to several.
Sure.
And then they come back, and we discuss it, and then you sit around, and, like, the social times end up being, like, UFC at your house.
Right.
It's just so then everyone's talking about it. Then I'm looking at Trade. I'm like, well, why haven't you done it? He's like, oh, man, I ain't going to do that shit because... And I'm like, well, I'm not worried about that. And then I go, dude, what if I just wait till I start till, like, I'm 50?
Right.
Do, like, 3 years of training and then hit the Masters League.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a plan now to, like, come in, train with you for 2 more years, go with some whatever, and start it later.
Sure.
When I'm an old man.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure, you know, you get like 3 years under your belt and go in and start twisting necks. But the idea of having a goal sounds killer.
Right, yeah. Because, like, for me as a school owner, like, when my students go to a tournament, like, I want them to win, you know, because I know it's important to them. But if the guy goes out there or the lady goes out there and gets beat in 5 seconds, I'm still super proud of them. And they didn't let me down at all. They gave it their best, and they had a lot of courage just to sign up and go out there and compete in that tournament, because that takes a lot of courage. And, you know, like, I'll have students, they'll lose, and they'll be like, oh, you know, I'm sorry I let you down. I'm like, bro, you didn't let me down at all. Right. Like, you really honored me that you believed in my teaching enough. You know, you believed in what I've been teaching you at my school enough that you put yourself out there against another guy or lady who has trained hard, who has a good jiu-jitsu instructor too, and you gave it your best. And this time we didn't win. I can live with that, because the honor was that you just believed in my teaching so much. You know, like,
and the courage, man.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's so
courage.
How scary is that?
Sure.
Go in as an adult and put yourself in a situation where you're going to lose.
Right.
Someone's losing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying you're going to lose, but it's a 50-50.
It's a mathematical fact that at every Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, 50% of the people lose their first match.
That's so, as an adult man, to go into something, to avoid losing fights your whole life, or like some people live a really clean life, like they haven't been in any scuffles, or they didn't go to the bar ever. They were, you know, they went to work, and then on the weekends they went and collected butterflies and shit, and did poetry. I don't know, but there's that person maybe, and then there's the person that ain't scared of it, right? So to go in and put yourself, I would say most of us would be scared of this. I don't think the average person, and you're like, man, I haven't been in a bar bouncing since 15 years from now. Mm-hmm. So that means I haven't been in a fight for 15 years, at least. I don't know when the one was before that, but we'll say that's when I quit bouncing. So the last time I grabbed a dude and started chunking him around was a long time ago.
Sure.
So to go in and do something after you're young and crazy, like you're saying you wouldn't want to go be a cornerman for your dude. You're 52. At 22, you'd be like, not only am I the cornerman, I'll fight the dude, you corner me, I'll corner you after. Who are we fighting next week? What's happening? Where's the roster? It's a totally different thing.
Absolutely.
Totally different monster. So
you feel invincible when you're in your 20s.
That's exactly, and you might be.
No.
You guys, well, you might be amongst the people you know.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of badasses when I was 20 that were the baddest dudes out of anybody, and they weren't necessarily trained.
Sure.
They had just been in way more fights than anybody. So by the time they were 20, they had 40 more fights than the dude that had 4. You know, so you get good at it.
I went to an MMA promotion one time, and being a good street fighter and being an MMA fighter are two different animals. And so the gimmick for the promotion was the bouncers at the bar were getting in the cage and going against professionally trained MMA fighters. And there was like maybe 10 fights that went that night. And in all 10, the professional MMA fighter won. You know, like,
absolutely.
Not in one case was the bouncer able to just knock him out, and I mean, not that they weren't courageous. They was incredibly courageous. They just didn't have the skill set, you know, to, you know, win those fights against people that are actually training, not just on the ground, but stand up, you know,
sober,
everywhere the fight goes. Yeah.
Sober.
And against people their same weight class. Because there's one thing you're like, hey, you know,
That's a good point.
I'm 300 pounds and I'm knocking people out. 150, 170 pound people, yeah, but how about other 300 pounders? No, it's like, that's who you're fighting. Somebody just your size. It's like, that could be dicey. So yeah, MMA it's a tough art, and there's just not a lot of money in it. Even the guys, you know, the guys in the prelims, even in the UFC, they're still making less than 10 grand. You know, and that's a lot.
It's
of
really
training
hard
for
to watch when you start looking at it like that.
Sure.
There's no bang for buck. I don't care who you are, and it seems like the better you are, the crazier you are. So you ain't keeping the money anyways.
Yeah.
If you look at like a football guy's career, you know, like the story is, you got a 3-year career, you bought a Benz, you know, you did whatever. 6 years later, you have no money.
Right.
It's gone. There's nothing. You're 26. Mm-hmm. You don't even know what happened.
Right.
You maybe you didn't get your degree. Maybe you really didn't even do school when you were in school. You ain't gonna go be a accountant. It's not happening.
It's like that old saying, "A fool and his money is soon parted." Like, how many athletes and entertainers have you seen make millions and then they end up bankrupt?
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't know how to keep the money, you don't know what to do with the money, it won't be with you long. You know?
Yeah, Saad, you know, you're not sitting on brand new cars or anything.
No.
But what you have is super nice, right?
Right.
So like when you wanted that Liberty safe, I thought you were gonna get like this dinky little safe. No, man, Saad has like the safe that's the size of this fucking table, right? It's like, holy shit, dude, we got a lot of guns to buy, right? It's like, wow, you're expanding, right? So it's like when you want to, you're doing, and then you tell me how long you did the research, and then we talk about the trip, and let's transition this to the training a little bit and the chest rigs, and kind of switching to the davronov. So we're planning this trip to go train at Travis Haley Strategic in November,
right?
And you have to have gear for this class. You have to have a couple, like 1 AK, hopefully 2, 4 magazines, 2,000 rounds of ammo. And this is like a 3-day class, 8 hours, half and half curriculum in the field. So me and Saad shoot at the range, but we're not like running around LARPing, playing with like stuff. Even when we go and we get the running around range part, we don't have all the right gear necessarily. Like, right, we're not actually.
Yeah, we're not competing.
We're not ready for any of this. Like, the most we did was get ready to go hunting for a while.
Right, sure.
So we had like a flashlight, so we went hunting. Mm-hmm. We didn't have like a class. So you have to have this gear that holds magazines and holds phone if you want, or whatever you want on this gear, like, you know, med packs and shit, whatever. So we're starting to plan for this, and I'm always watching Clayco 47, and I think I turned you on to him.
Yeah.
He's probably the fastest kid on an AK I've ever seen. I haven't seen him do long distance, but his up close work is just insane with an AK.
Yeah.
It's really quick, and he's in Texas, and I become friends with him over Instagram and then Facebook, and I got his regular number and stuff, and he is always AK centric on his YouTube channel, Clayco 47, and he has all the gear, and from Soviet era war stuff to the modern, and he runs 3-gun competitions using AKs and does quite well. So he knows how to run AKs. So I go to his channel and I start looking at best ways to run the AK, and they're talking about the Scorpion mag pouches and the belts and all this stuff, and I can't get a belt because I'm coming down in size so much. I've come from like 444 2 years. It'd be 2 years, almost 2 years in like a month or 3 weeks or so. So we're coming at right at 2 years. 444, and now I'm like 290. So I've been through like 3 sets of clothes, and I'm gonna go through more. So I'm not buying some $200 belt that's gonna fit for 6 months. It ain't happening. So I start looking at chest rigs. Now chest rigs are considered old school. They're not even considered the new stuff because people wear the battle belts and they run around and get all crazy. But to me, the chest rig is really simple because you can just leave it loaded and then grab it and put it on. So he had just gotten this gear from a guy called davronov on Instagram, by.davronov, davronov.
Yeah, if you put it in the link,
Yeah, we'll link
below.
it, but it's by davronov, and he has this 4-rig chest mount. This is by this guy. So I see Clayco's version of this, and I call up davronov and start talking to him. And he ends up making me this, and it's just insane. So I tell him I need a mag pouches and a cell phone and my knife, and then he adds like a third pocket over here, which like holds my cannon shawl perfect. So now when I go to the class, I got cannon shawl, magazine, cell phone, so I can record what I'm doing at the class. And this is my version of what I wanted. Then I sent him the knife, and he put me a sheath in here. So he doesn't take custom orders. He did this for me custom after I talked to him for a while. And I'm just going to take it off here and kind of like show it. But this is all goat leather. And I believe the way he can offer these at the price he can offer these, it's because he works at the factory that deals with the leather. So this is all handmade. He put my logo on there. He puts in the chamois cloth and makes it, like, incorporates it. And then look at the back of this. I haven't even showed you this yet. So this is all stitched. And then he has his label right here. This is by davronov. So Saad, I call him and put this order in, and I go, I need it by November, beginning of November. He goes, okay. And then he calls a few times, and we're talking, and he's like, what kind of magazines are you going to use? And I'm like, well, I prefer the North Koreans. He's like, oh, what do they look like? And I send him a picture of a North Korean mag, and they're just like the Chinese mags and the regular metal mags. And he builds this thing and sends it to me. Well, hold on, he doesn't just send it to me. He builds this thing and asks me some questions a few times. And then he gets done with it. And he goes, okay, man, I'm sending it to you. And I go, how much is it, man? And he goes, don't worry about that. And I go, no way, dude. When I got a hold of you about this, I'm for sure going to pay you. He goes, man, I know how much you like AKs, and just tell people about it, please. And I go, no, I'm not going to tell people about it. Only I know what the range is. You told me in the beginning they go between $200 and $400. I go, this is not an 8-pack. Usually he makes like 8 packs, and he has them for RPKs, and he has them for all Russian type stuff. He has one for SVDs, for snipers, like a whole rack of them. He goes, they go between $200 and $400. When I first talked to him, I cracked my pants. I'm around custom work all the time.
Right.
This price is just unbelievable. The leather alone, I can't tell you how much the leather alone costs, but it's a lot. It's not cheap. So he has access to the plant. He works at the leather place. He's getting deals on the leather, and he's not even putting that in his price. And then the time involved, it took him 2 days at least, because he was calling me over 2 days as he was making it for clarifications and whatnot. So it's a couple of days worth of work, And you can see, look at that.
That's nice.
It's so insane. So yeah, this is my new chest rig. I am going to be wearing that at the Travis Haley class, and I'll be able to record the class as much as my phone will take it, as long as that battery will work, and we'll have a blast, man. And you ended up getting your rig.
Yeah, because I have a Chinese surplus military rig, and I decided I'd go ahead and buy the Haley Strategic. They make a rig, a full-size rig, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go through their class. I'll just go ahead and get their stuff. You know, I'm not, like, I have my own rifle sling, but for the chest rig, I was like, I don't know if I really want to go through 3 days of hard training with an old-school rig when maybe something new and more modern might be a little bit more comfortable. So I was like, yeah, I can always bring both. And just like I'll bring both my AKs, both the AK-47 and the AK-74, just in case, you know, one malfunctions or it seems like it'd be better to use one over the other. And I'll just bring both and we'll just play it out and see how it
What's
goes.
interesting is the chest rig you chose. You ended up with like the full battle one in case, like where there's all the mags up front and the pistol load and enough for medical and whatever else on the left.
Right.
So you had 2 admin pouches. I think 8 mags, right? Or was it double pouch or singles? 4 mags?
I think 4 magazines for rifle
and then 4 pistol.
4 for pistol.
So yeah, it's a really nice loadout.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. And it's everything you need for the class plus 1, which is...
Anybody that doesn't know Travis Haley, he's a former U.S. Marine, recon Marine. He was the CEO of Magpool, who makes a lot of custom rifle and
parts.
Stuff.
Not
Parts.
custom as much as parts. They do a
Yeah,
lot
they
of
make a lot.
aftermarket.
So slings,
Yeah.
different stuff like that. And now he's got his own company, but he runs his training out in Arizona. And you know, like me and Stomp, we was talking. It's like, you know, I received military training on the M16, but I've never received any kind of formal training on the AK-47. Just
How did we lead to this? Because you brought this up. I didn't bring this
Right.
up. You
Yeah.
said, "Hey,
Right.
do you want to take this class?"
Yeah.
How did you find out about this?
so I was looking at. There was different guys I was looking at. You know, because one, like, I see these different trainings offered by different yahoos that I don't know about their qualifications, but I was interested in some AK training. And so I started looking at, like, okay, well, you know, who's really legitimate out there? And, you know, Travis Haley, when I saw that he offered that in November, I'm like,
You can't get no more
yeah,
with it.
like, because one, you know, like, as I've mentioned on other episodes, I spent 33 years in the Navy, but at least 10 of those years were assigned with Marine Corps units, you know, and so I'm very partial to the U.S. Marines. So if a Marine is offering training, you know, and there's always service rivals. We joke back and forth. Marines joke on sailors, sailors joke on Marines, but you know, we're brothers. And if a Marine is offering training, I'm prioritizing that over anybody else. You know, and so the fact of his credentials, I was like, he's offering AK training, and you know, there's some other guys we was looking at. There was a guy, Larry Vickers. I think he was an Army Green Beret. He offers training, so I was looking at him, and then there's a Russian Special Forces group that comes into the United States every once in a while, I think called Center T. I was looking at them, but when I saw Travis Haley was offering, I'm like, he was a Marine.
Yeah,
like,
Saad
this is
calls
training
me.
I could fall in for.
Saad calls me and goes, "Hey man, you want to take an AK class with Travis Haley?" I go, "Travis Haley?" He's like, "Yeah, Travis Haley." I go, "Dude, yeah, where is it?" He's like, "Arizona." I'm like, we can drive to that. He's like, "Yeah, dude."
Yeah.
I'm like, "How much is it?" Here's the crazy part.
Right.
It's $800.
Right.
I know that might sound expensive, but you're getting 3 days classroom and on his range for $800.
Right.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. That's so crazy to me that we're gonna be able to hang out with this dude and spend like, you know, $250 a day or whatever, $275 a day or whatever it is, and get skills that this guy spent a lifetime figuring out the hard way.
Right.
Awesome, dude. We're gonna have a blast.
Sure.
It's gonna be so much fun. So yeah, it's you went with the bigger rig. I was surprised by that.
Yeah. And I just think, like, if you're looking for training, like, there's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of yahoos out there offering training all across the country. But, like, really dig down into their credentials. Like, you know, like, sometimes I'll read people's credentials and they're so vague. And there's a constant problem within the United States of what in the military we call stolen valor, where people will claim all kinds of insane stuff. You know, matter of fact, the Supreme Court had to make a decision on a guy, I believe it was in the state of Washington. He won a seat on the city council, and he claimed to be a Medal of Honor winner, which is great, except the fact was the dude was never even in the military, let alone, and if you win the Medal of Honor in the military, that's usually have to die to win it. There's very few people living that earn the Medal of Honor. It's our highest military award, and it is very rare to get. And it's usually given after the person's death. You know, the person died and was awarded the Medal of Honor. So for this dirtbag to claim that he was a Medal of Honor winner when he never when he was never awarded the Medal of Honor, and he was never even in the military. And so there's a lot of people out there, just, they lie on their credentials. And it's not just with the military, it's also looking at it for martial arts schools. People will be claiming all kinds of crazy martial arts. They'd be like, oh, the ghost of Bruce Lee came into my room for 10 years and taught me all the secrets of Jeet Kune Do, and now I'm a Grand Master. It's like, let's slow your roll on that. So there's some questionable things people put out there. So the thing with Travis Haley that made the decision easier was I knew he was legit. I know people that served with Travis, and so there was no question. It's like, this guy is who he says he is.
There's a few people that I'm really interested in training with, especially Clint Smith, and he's in his I think he's in his early 70s.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's still running classes, and he's been through so much, right? So for him to run classes, there's a few dudes I would jump into, but to have specific AK training is really odd. Yeah. And that's kind of like what we're interested in. Mm-hmm. I have no. Sure. I think I shot someone's AR-15 the other day, and I was confirming why I didn't like it.
Yeah, I never.
It was confirmed. I think it was an AR-10 too. It was 308. Really? It was a decent one too, man. Sure. Reaching out, cock. Right, I was
I just never liked the AR platform.
I'm so AK. Yeah. I just love it so much. I'm not going nowhere.
And matter of fact, speaking of training, there was another guy. I was watching a video because there's a group that goes out and busts people for stolen valor. And there was a guy, he was running really advanced training out of Georgia. And he claimed to have been a Navy SEAL and a pilot. I forgot what kind of aircraft he said he flew. And he would show pictures of himself with the SEAL Trident and wearing an admiral's uniform. Turned out they did a expose on him. And he's teaching people. People are paying him to teach them how to defend themselves, how to do military ops. And what they found was, dude did not go to Vietnam. He was in his 70s. He was never in the Navy. He was not a Navy SEAL. He was not a pilot. He did 4 years in the Marine Corps Reserve, and while he was in the Marine Corps Reserve, he never went to Vietnam. So he actually did service, not to belittle the Marine Corps Reserve.
It's interesting.
But he was not a Navy SEAL.
It's interesting because you transition to stolen valor, and I gravitate to those videos, right? Mm-hmm. I watch, I think his name is Don Shipley. Don Shipley. Mm-hmm. He used to have the biggest channel on stolen valor, and he's an old SEAL, and he knew how to go through all the records and figure out how people, because I guess everybody really claims to be a SEAL. So, in the stolen valor thing. Right. And he made a whole YouTube page that had millions of subs. Mm-hmm. And he finally got shut down for some reason because he's harassing all these guys online.
Right.
His whole job is to dismantle these dudes.
Because he's exposing their lies. And they're making money off lying.
and Beth comes in, and this is what's weird. Beth comes in when I'm watching it, and she's like, why are you watching that? And I'm like, this is crazy to me that people would do this. And she's like, those are mentally ill people, Bob. And I go, well, hold on. maybe.
Right.
Maybe they are, and maybe that's the best we can say about them. But maybe at the same time, I don't understand how it doesn't bother her. She's in the Army.
Yeah.
She's when the general says jump, she has to jump. I mean, there's just nothing. There's no sideways about that. She has no choice. We get told to move, we move. She's leaving next week for a week. There's no choice. Yeah. I think she's been off and on for 25 years. You would think someone like it would bother her the most.
And I think what it is like, if it's an old guy, some 80-year-old guy sitting on his porch, telling his grandkid and the neighbor kids, he was at D-Day and turns out, he wasn't. Okay, I don't really care about that guy. It's sort of no harm, no foul. But when a guy like the guy in the Pacific Northwest who was elected to city council, now he's making major decisions,
right?
And he was elected, maybe not entirely on the fact that he claimed that he was a Medal of Honor winner, but I'm sure that played a big thing in the military vote. That offends me.
Yeah.
That he stole that valor that he did not earn, and now he's reaping what somebody who actually did earn it should have been in. Or the guy in Georgia,
because that's the real part, right?
Who's teaching people self-defense, how to shoot, how to do, military operations, claiming he was a Navy SEAL, claiming he was a pilot, claiming he was an admiral, and actually wearing the uniform. And, he seemed like a crusty old guy. Looked like, like he passed the eyeball test. Except, like if you're in the military, you realize to be a Navy SEAL, that's such complicated, intense training. And to be a Navy pilot is such complicated, intense training that there may be somebody out there that was both a pilot and a Navy SEAL. I've just never met that person.
There's that one.
And I was in the Navy for 33 years. I never met anybody that was both. And there's nobody. And if one of our viewers has met somebody that knows of somebody that is doing Navy SEAL operations and still flying aircraft,
that's bullshit.
Yeah, it's BS. But if you know of somebody, please.
There is a dude, and he did 3 things. Oh, he's a doctor. Okay, so yeah, he went from Navy SEAL,
right,
to astronaut, to like research doctor.
Right.
It's some Korean dude.
Yeah, I saw him.
It's so crazy.
He's not doing all 3 currently.
Not at all.
Like
no, he's just so driven, right? It's his history, really. Sure. I've seen him in podcasts. He's super fascinating.
Yeah, like a guy could go through Navy SEAL training. Let's say do 6 years in the Navy, get out, go to medical school, become a doctor,
or become an astronaut.
That can happen, but there's no guy that's doing all 3 currently. Like third of my time I do Navy SEAL ops.
Yeah.
A third of my time I fly in a spaceship. And a third of my time, I perform heart procedures.
There's a lot of people
that doesn't exist.
There's a lot of people pulling like triple duty in weird ways. Like I remember being a student, and I would also deliver pizza, and I would also like work at a place cleaning the floors, and then I would go be a bouncer. So you're just pulling like shifts everywhere, but not full time anywhere, and not competent really. Not competent at anything except maybe. That's a pretty goddamn good bouncer, but
sure,
but. You're young, right? So you're pulling all these part-time jobs that ain't paying. So you're working 3 jobs because you ain't got the fucking money.
Sure.
So you're trying to piece it together, and that's the struggle. But to sit down and finish a 4-year degree, and then go be competent in a job, and then go do it again, and then be competent in a job, and then do it a third time, insanity.
Right. Very rare, and there's nobody that's actively doing all 3 or both jobs. Like I remember, one of the reasons I can't watch military shows is like. It was like maybe the 80s, early 90s. A friend tried to convince me to sit there and watch Navy JAG, which was about Navy lawyers. And the lawyer was defending a case, and then he went and got inside a Navy aircraft and flew away. That would never happen. Like, lawyers is very complicated. If you're a lawyer in the military, that's all you do.
Right.
If you're a pilot in the military, that's all you do. So the more amazing accomplishments a guy loads on to himself, that's usually some of your first signs that this isn't going to be legit. But, you can go down a rabbit hole, and it's not just military. Like I said, martial arts. Even if you watch during the what do you call it? The lockdown. I was watching an old Clint Eastwood movie called Unforgiven.
Oh, I love that movie.
Where Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman, they were basically retired killers who were now into farming, and a young kid comes along, and he calls himself the Schofield Kid, after the Smith & Wesson pistol, and he claimed to have killed a lot of people.
Schofield Kid.
Yeah, the Schofield Kid.
Schofield.
Yeah, the Schofield Kid, and Clint tended to believe the kid because Clint was ashamed. His character in the movie was ashamed of all the killing he did. So it's like, in his mind, why would you lie about being a killer when you're not a killer? You know, when he was ashamed of what he had done. So he didn't really catch on to the fact that this guy was a fraud until later in the movie, where Morgan Freeman immediately caught on, like, no, this guy ain't legit. You know, he's like, well, how many people you killed? Oh, I've killed 5 men. And Morgan Freeman's like, he didn't kill no 5 guys. And, you know, where the Clint Eastwood character, of course, you know, the movie plot, he had killed a whole bunch of
everybody. Yeah.
He's like, I'd killed men, women,
He's
children.
old drunk that can't really live because of all the killing he's done. Right.
And so just, you know, it's this stolen valor concept. It's rampant in our society.
You know, it's not even just about military either. I was thinking about. I didn't want to lose my point for a second. You know, like, I've only worked so many places as a teacher.
Right.
So people may be able to figure this out, and I don't give a fuck. Everyone who I'm working with knows what I'm talking about. So, I've had somebody in the classroom tell the students that they're the teacher as an aide. They're the person helping you with the lessons.
Right. Yeah.
Telling the kids that they're the teacher.
Right.
And then I've had the same person go and start answering the questions that the kids are doing. Like, I would put a riddle on the board. Right. And every class would come through and read the riddle. And then the kids would go to lunch and try to figure out the riddle. And then the aide's trying to figure out the riddle. And I'm like, hold on, the riddle's not for you.
Right. Yeah.
Stop answering the riddle.
Right.
You know, I can make this riddle last for 4 or 5 days.
Sure.
It could take till Friday till this one student out of, we'll say 25 kids, 5 classes, got 5 kids a class. Real weird school, right? It's an awesome place, but it's real small numbers. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 aides in the room with those 5 kids. Right. Yeah. But one of them's telling I'm the teacher. She's telling the teacher in front of me that she's a teacher to the kids, and I go, you're confusing them. Right. And I'm having this argument with her in front of the kids. I go, you're confusing the kids. And she's like, what do you mean? I go, you're not the teacher. I go, I don't know if you've ever been a teacher, but you're definitely not the teacher now. Yeah. I'm the teacher. Right. And I need you to do this and this and this, please. Right. And then it was always like this weird dynamic where she couldn't get over the fact that people were in charge of her. Sure. Right? And that she wasn't in charge. And she's always telling the kids she's a teacher. And then eventually, it gets to the point where I almost kick her out of my room myself. Yeah. And then I got to deal with her later the next year, because this is a constant problem. Right? She ain't going nowhere. Sure. This is work part. She's a fine person. There's nothing wrong with her personally, except she's crazy. I mean, she's telling everyone she's a teacher when she's not the teacher. Right. This is in front of kids, in front of the teacher, in front of people. Yeah. She used to teach kindergarten 15 years ago. Right. I go, it's not the same. That's not. Right. You ain't never wrote an IEP. You ain't never. Right. You're not responsible for nothing, man. If something happens when you're walking the kids, I'm in trouble. Yeah. You're not in trouble. I'm in trouble. Right. I'm the person on record. I'm the person who signs the paperwork. Right. It's totally different. So, the next year I got to figure out how to deal with this, right? I mean, I'm not one to not say something. All you had to do was just repeat her name like 15 times a lesson, and she had to feel included, and there was no issues. Huh. So it's a weird thing. People want to be something so bad. Sure. And maybe they wanted to do it, and they thought they were doing it because they're, like, I'm not going to lie, sometimes these aides run the class. Right. Sometimes the aide is the best teacher in the room. Sure. I mean, a lot of times the aides are the best teacher in the room, actually. They're the ones that are cleaning up the hard stuff in between the lessons, right? They're the ones that are making sure the kid's paying attention, got the book open, doing all the stuff. A good aide is never sitting around on her phone, right? Same way a good teacher's never sitting around on the phone. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's always something to do as far as paying attention to these kids. So, you got somebody that's either wanting to be in the military so bad and couldn't do it. They want the clout. You got these guys wearing crazy ass fucking uniforms all the way down to their stomach, and they weigh like 350 pounds, and it's obvious they've never done anything but eat cake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a weird psychosis, right? And some people it bothers, and some people it doesn't bother. It would fire me up if I seen that stuff. I love watching those videos when they get destroyed. But Beth is like, you know, that's a sad human, man. Why would you want to like relish in their demise? That's why she's a better person than me.
Yeah, I'm okay if they lie and they don't hurt anybody. But when they're lying and they're offering a service or getting into elected office, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you know, it just goes into so many different areas. I remember like the first time I ever heard about somebody lying about like being from a bad neighborhood and gangs was when they busted Vanilla Ice. He was a rapper in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm from this horrible neighborhood." Turned out he was from a very affluent neighborhood, never had any bad stuff. And then they started looking at other of these what do you call it, like gangster rappers, and found out, no, they're not from bad neighborhoods either. They're all doing pretty well. You know, and you know, not to say that all of these musicians were fake,
or fronting,
but a number of them, you know, were claiming, you know, this violent lifestyle that they grew up in, and turned out, they didn't live in a violent lifestyle at all.
I'm pretty sure some country singer just got lost in like 30 acres in his backyard. You think country singer, maybe he knows something about being in the backyard?
Sure.
Apparently not.
No, not everybody.
Get lost in your own 30 acres.
Right. Not everybody that sings country.
So if I got lost in my own 30 acres, I'd be upset.
Sure.
I mean, it is butted up to a national park, so I guess you could take a right turn and not know what you're doing, but Jesus Christ. 30 acres. I covered that in like 5 minutes today on my bike.
Right. Yeah.
For real.
I don't know how many acres we were on that night. We was going through somebody else's property.
That was 230.
Yeah, we didn't get lost.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't think of
Shouldn't
that.
be getting lost, yeah.
And that was in the dark.
Right, yeah. It's in the dark, no lights.
No lights.
In the middle of nowhere, yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
We figured it out.
We did scare the Mexicans, though, when we came up when they were listening to the music.
Yeah, well, that was mutual concern because, you know, like, we're in the middle of nowhere, and then there's a group of people having a get-together with dogs. And then the dogs are alerted, and they're all looking into the tree line.
And we got AK-47s, and we're walking around like we're on patrol.
And I don't know what they had.
Yeah.
I just knew if they came back into the tree line with us, there was going to be a problem.
Yeah. It was a really scary night, really, actually.
Because when you're out there in the country like that, like, you never know, like, you might walk up into, you know, like somebody's meth lab or, you know, like marijuana plantation.
Tim's land is amazing.
Sure.
And there's a tiny fence around this 230 acres that is bridgeable by any board.
Sure.
And, you know, so you can't see the fence. And then it backs up to, on the backside, it backs up to thousands of acres.
Sure.
So when you're in there, you're sort of surrounded. And then we were doing it at night. And then all we ended up doing was following back pig trails to get back to the house. So, yeah, that's 230 acres in several hours of walking.
Sure.
Several hours of walking. And miles of walking. That was fun. Well, I think I don't know if we have enough time.
No, we don't have enough time to answer our question. So next week, for those of you that tune in, next week we are gonna. There was a question a friend of mine asked me about my thoughts on joining a civilian militia. You know, because there's some difficult times. There's some violence going on in the streets. Matter of fact, just San Antonio flea market. One of my students responded today that he was at the flea market and there was a shooting. Like they found like 100 casings. I guess 5 people got shot. And this just at the flea market. So there's a lot of violence going out there, and there's a lot of different type of militia groups throughout the country. Some are long-standing, some are
Starting
new startups, and so next week we're going to talk about my thoughts and Stomp's thoughts, which may not be the same.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because we're not here because we agree on everything.
Right.
And we're going to talk about our thoughts on should you consider joining a militia? What are some of the pros or cons, and what are some of the things that we would look out for before going in? Because if you're going to do it, I highly recommend you go in with your eyes wide open, knowing exactly what you're getting into.
So this week for you guys, if you can, I think most of the people that watch this for the most part know how to get a hold of us. If you want to send a comment here about what you would like us to talk about with the militias, any questions about the militias, I think it's going to be a fascinating,
Sure.
fascinating conversation. So Stomp Strong this week, guys. We'll get a hold of you next week and have a blast.
Yes.
Thank you, Davronov. You're the man, bro. Thank you.